G'day, wherever you are in this multiverse of ours. Welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm Tony Jack the Bear Mance, and I am here in my studio, Deluxe Mastering, during this coronavirus epidemic. I've managed to sneak through many checkpoints and break the law to be here to do this podcast with a lovely lady from the UK who I've been trying to get on the podcast for the last 17 years, and we finally got her at last. Katie Tavini, welcome. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Good to have you. We finally got here. We've made numerous attempts. You're by the way,
It's been a while.
yeah, you're not the you don't have the record for the longest attempt or the longest amount of time to get someone on a podcast. So
Damn, who does?
At the moment, Chris Athens. I've been trying to get him on for a year now, and I will be relentless in my pursuit of getting the man on. I'll be like a pit bull with a death wish. So I will be more persistent than he is elusive. No, in all honesty, he hasn't been eluding me. That would be very unfair. But he's a busy man. He's currently, as you know, and as you can see online, he's currently got every number one book for the next 20 years. The guy's tearing it up, and he's busy as all hell, like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking competition. And God bless him. Good luck to him. I'll get there. We'll get there one day. Maybe when I'm in an old people's home and doing, retired podcast, something like that. Well, lovely to have you on, Katie. How's it going over there?
Good. It's good. We're it's a bit of a weird time. We're I think this is our 6th day without leaving the house.
Okay.
So yeah, quarantine.
Self-imposed.
Yeah. Well, we both have coughs, and last week I basically did a tour of the north, going round lots of different unis and colleges, talking to the students, and had to do a lot of traveling for that. And yeah, it was just a matter of time. So,
well, I'm really happy that I have you on the podcast, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't pretend to be some kind of champion of women's rights, but I do love it when we can get some female engineers or producers, and particularly master engineers on the podcast, because sadly there aren't that many. Many don't really think of it as a career option, or they I think many women shoot themselves in the foot before they get started, because they straight away work on the assumption that, well, it's a boys' club, no one's going to want to hire me. And I and my other male counterparts can sit and we can be as supportive as we want to be week in, week out, and be very sincere in our sentiment. But I think nothing speaks louder to a young girl who may be watching the podcast, who may have aspirations of becoming a master engineer, than seeing another woman who's actually doing it and kicking ass, which you are on both counts. So,
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, seriously, you're doing extraordinarily well, and I've been following you online, and I've been watching your journey unfold, and it's been just amazing to watch just how much you've grown, and as an engineer, it's brilliant. So tell us, Katie, how'd you get into mastering? What was the catalyst for you that got you into the whole mastering caper?
It was totally an accident. In fact, I've never met or spoken to a mastering engineer who actually wanted to be a mastering engineer. I don't know about you. I don't know whether mastering was the goal from the very beginning.
I always say mastering found me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So same. Basically, I have someone who's now a dear friend, called James Routh. He's a producer, and he plays so many instruments, and he mixes, and he gigs, and he guy does so much stuff, and he engineers bands and stuff. And one day, so I was working in a few different studios, and that was kind of what I wanted to do, was work in studios as a recording engineer, and I was producing some bands and just kind of trying to do as much stuff as possible. And the one thing that I always talk about, which is why I started practicing mastering, is because I was always really shit at mixing. I've got the shortest attention span, and when there's so many options, and it's really overwhelming. And I was working with some amazing people who were, you know, really very patient with me whilst I was trying to mix, and I was putting in all the hours outside of my work, like practicing mixing and stuff. And this was like before YouTube tutorials were really a thing. And yeah, so I asked for some help. I think it was on Gear Sluts, which I would not recommend anyone go on to ask for help. But someone said, if you want to learn to mix better, then learn how to master. And I was like, well, I'm just going to try anything here. So I used to steal tracks, like finished mixes from the studios I was working at, take them home, try and master them on the master. I didn't even know what mastering was then. On like the free desktop speakers that came with your like PC. Terrible, I know. But and then so I'd try and master them, and then I'd compare them with the proper masters that came back, and obviously mine sounded nothing like the professional masters. And I started thinking, well, what have they done? Why have they done it? How can I get mine to sound more like theirs? Like, what are the reasons behind this? And so I'd practice quite hard with the intent of, this will make me a better mixing engineer or recording engineer. And then one day I was up, I was practicing my mastering. It was like midnight or something, and I got a message from James, and he was like, I didn't even know him at the time. We had mutual friends on Facebook, but I didn't know him. And he added me as a friend, and he was like, I need someone to master an EP now. And I was like, okay, I can recommend some people to you. And he was like, no, I want you to master it. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not a mastering engineer. This is weird. I don't want to do this. And he was like, no, please just do it now, because you're awake. Because I've seen some of your other work. And I was like, all right, just don't use it if it's terrible. And so we stayed up pretty much the whole night, like bouncing these files back and forth. And in the morning he was like, yeah, I'm going to use this, it's cool. And so I was like, okay, that was a weird little event. Let's get back to mixing and learning how to mix. And you know, I never wanted to be a mixing engineer, but when you're doing recording, people expect you to mix, or at least that's what I found anyway. And so I was like still focused on the goal. And then James came back to me and it was like, yeah, my band, we've recorded an album and we'd like you to master it because we liked what you did for this EP. And I was like, okay, cool. And that album ended up doing really well in the punk scene. And you know, just I didn't have a website, I didn't have anything at that point, and inquiries started coming in, like, how much do I charge? I was like, oh, can I charge for this? Like, I don't really know. And so from then I had a lot of like backtracking and learning. Like, I didn't really know what metadata was. I didn't really know how digital audio worked, really, because a lot of my background was sort of analog based. And yeah, sort of had a lot of learning to do, and sort of just took it one step at a time. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, but fun.
So how long do you think it took, how many years in before you started? I guess everyone will always say that there's always more to learn and all that, and I understand all that, but realistically, how long did it take for you until you felt like really quite confident in your ability and not as tentative, perhaps?
I'll keep you posted when that happens. No, I'm joking. So so the first mastering I did was in 2011 for James, and now it's 2020. But I'd say I've been taking it sort of seriously for about the past 2 to 3 years. So that's like 2 to 3 years really focusing on mastering and nothing else. So yeah, but like every 6 months I have, or you know, even sometimes closer together, even every 3 months, sometimes I have like this mega revelation. Like I worked with a producer called Ben Hillier like December, January. That sort of, you know, it's March now, so that wasn't too long ago. And he's such an incredible producer, and working with him really like changed the way I listen to things. And yeah, it was like eye-opening. It was amazing. And then sort of before that, like I bought some new speakers, and that was another like, oh, I'm gonna do this differently from now on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, many things as you go on. So I like, yeah, I think 2 to 3 years ago is when I started taking it really, really seriously. But like, yeah, you always have those like, whoa, this is always going to be different from now on
Yeah.
moments, which is really cool. I think if I didn't have those, I'd get like really bored. And I think with mastering, it's like, it's a lot about, you know, tastes and stuff, but it's also about working with other people and their tastes. And like,
Yeah.
you know, music is constantly changing, and I think that's really cool for someone with a short attention span. That's like spot on. So yeah.
Did you growing up? Did you listen to a lot of different styles of music? Because I know I did, and I found that was helpful to me in the work I do at the moment, because I'm pretty comfortable doing just about anything, really.
Yeah, for sure. I loved like literally any music growing up. And like I remember, so I've played violin since I was about 6 years old. And that's because when I was in primary school, I saw this girl. She came into an assembly and she played the violin, and I was like, and she was like a couple of years ahead of me in school. And she came on and she was screeching, and it made this absolute racket, and I was like, oh my god, I want to sound like that. That is amazing. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before, because, you know, my dad used to play records, and they were all, you know, like 80s music and stuff. And it was all really like well produced, and he played a bit of punk as well. And um you know, some classical music, some chill out music. And yeah, my dad has a pretty varied taste in music, but like to hear this really raw, like wailing, screeching, it was like, it was really inspiring. And just like the sort of chaoticness of it, like she
Hmm.
was allowed to go and stand in front of people and make an absolute racket. I wanted to do that. So yeah, I started playing the violin, obviously listening to classical music and jazz, and then punk. And you know, I was got really into metal when I was a teenager. And yeah, it was like when people, you know, when you ask someone what kind of music they like, and they say I'll listen to anything, and
Mm.
normally that means that they don't really like music and they actually don't have a favorite thing. But
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
will literally listen to anything and find something that I enjoy about it. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is.
The most common dad joke answer I give to people is just I only like one style of music, and that's good music. And you know, good, of course, is subjective. But I think for me, if music is honest, I know as engineers we can get analytical, and we like to, and we can appreciate music on a level that the average listener doesn't. But if a song or performance is really honest, I can always forgive timing errors, tuning errors, any kind of sort of fluffs, if you will, and any imperfections. And if the vibe is there and it moves me, then I'm down. I'm totally into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been working with an artist this past week who, you know, she approached me. She seemed quite shy, but sort of shy but on it. And she's like so nice. And you know, I gave her a bit of feedback on the mixers, but it was only like tiny little things. And she said, oh, okay, I'll ask this guy to make those changes. And it was just little things like just comping either before or after a breath, so you don't hear a breath cut in half. It was tiny little things, but the tracks themselves sounded like amazing. And she was like, oh yeah, the guy who's mixing this isn't an engineer. He's just someone I know. And I was like, holy shit. And you listen to the tracks and you don't think about like what the quality is or
Yeah.
anything. You just think, holy shit, her voice and her writing and the way she performs these tracks, like it doesn't matter about anything else. It's so good, and I can't stop thinking about how fucking good she is. Just like just on her, like nothing, everything else aside. Like if she sang those songs in a room with nothing else, you'd be like, holy shit, she is good. And yeah, I think it's, you know, when you get someone like that, it's just really inspiring, and it makes you want to like put more love into what you do.
You care to share the name of this artist?
I don't know if she'd want me to.
Oh, okay.
I feel a bit weird about it.
That's okay. I'm not going to put you.
Perhaps if I ask her, and then maybe you can share a link. But she is phenomenal. Like, I'm really excited about her. Yeah. So I'll ask her if she wants me to mention her, and then a link.
Well, please do. I find it always such a special moment when you get to work with someone or a band that you listen to when you're working on it, and you think to yourself, shit, if I heard this in a store, I would be saying, who is this? And I'd want to buy it, you know?
Yeah.
So I love those records when they do come in, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it's always a treat when you get those moments. So tell me, Katie, you're the poster girl for Wavelab. Well, you know, you are the poster girl for them.
I am. Yeah, it's really weird.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think it's brilliant. How did that all come about? And what's involved with, you know, is what are some of the duties you need to perform, or, you know, as you know, as part of someone who's representing them? What do you do with them? How do you go, you know?
So I used to do a marketing job for an audio school, and like part of my my role was to like work with different companies, and so you know, for like freshers fairs, I'd try and put on like really interactive things instead of just like stands handing out flyers and promoting their products. I'd be like, okay, if you want to be involved, you have to like come and put on a workshop. And Steinberg were always the company that came with like the most enthusiasm and like the most fun.
Right.
And so Dom Segalis, who's one of the Steinberg product specialists, and also for Roland and Yamaha as well. I think they're like all under the same umbrella. But yeah, like we always used to geek out. Like I've known him for a very long time. And you know, he's a mastering engineer, and like guy's crazy talented. So we got on really well, and like always kept in touch, and we'd see each other at events, and you know, just always have a really nice time hanging out together. And so that's, you know, I've had a bit of a connection with Steinberg for a while through that. And also I've been using Wavelab since 2003 because I got a free copy with Cubasis, which was yeah, I was a bit like, what's this? I like the logo, it's pink. It was pink back then, and I really liked that. Whereas Cubasis was like really 8-bit looking and red and black, and it looked a bit harsh. So I tried this like free demo of Wavelab that I got, and I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like loads more stable for audio than Cubasis. But so yeah, I've been using their products for a long time, and then there's Mike, who you should speak to, from Mystery Room Mastering.
Sure, we'd love to.
Who is just, yeah, he kind of like really inspires me to do more. Where is he based? Sorry, can we delete that bit? His name's not Mike.
That's okay.
Can we edit that out?
Okay.
His name's Justin.
That's okay. You know what?
So
that's all right. I'm going to leave the fluff up. It's honest.
it's honest. It's because he's from Milwaukee, and on his Instagram he has MKE. But this is the guy. Anyway, I like religiously follow him on social media, and to the point where it's a little bit stalkery. But I really like what he's doing, and I think he's.
What do you particularly like about him? Tell me.
I like his vibe. I like that he's really honest about what he does. I like the fact that he's, you know, he works on some really big name stuff, but he's also really encouraging to newer bands, and he really supports his local scene, and that's really cool. Like, because sometimes you see people who, you know, they get to a certain point in their career and they're only working on major label releases. But I really think that you have to invest in like the community, and you know, he sponsors podcasts, he works with newer bands. He's also got a sausage dog in his studio called Chester, who I love. And so basically he's really cool, and I really like what he's doing. And he emailed me just being like, yo, do you mind if I put you forward for you know, potentially hooking up with Wavelab? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I spoke to the guys at Wavelab, and then before I knew it, Dom, who I've known for years, and his amazing camera team came round to my studio and filmed the video, which was all very surreal, and it was just really cool and natural, because I've done some video interviews before, and they didn't go so well. Mainly because I swear a bit too much, and also
I know all about that one.
It's hard when you're like really passionate about something to keep your image in check.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a really good day, because it was like, it just felt really natural, and it was nice, and we all hung out, and it was really, really good. And so yeah, I didn't really know I'd be the poster face for Wavelab until it went online and people started messaging me going, yo, your face is on the new Wavelab. And I was like, okay, cool. But you know, we shot the video, and Dom did all of the like the promo photos that I use for stuff as well, which is really cool. And yeah, it's cool. It's weird. I mean, I don't really do much with Wavelab now, but I'd like to work with them in the future. I mean, I'm not a product specialist or anything, and Dom knows every corner.
So you're no longer sponsored by them, or you're not their face, if you will?
No, it's really weird how it works. So basically, we just partnered for the launch, and then kind of that was it. But they've been really supportive. But it's tricky because you know, like, I'm not a product specialist. The new features, I don't know, they're really cool, but I don't really know how to explain them. So Dom, and also DJ Sapo, who again is amazing. He's a hot mastering engineer, he's a DJ, he's a product specialist for Steinberg. So they do a lot of work sort of educating people about the fact that a mastering door is not the same as, you know, a normal one, because you can do all this stuff in the same software. And yeah, I have been really lucky that Steinberg wanted to work with me, because it has made people take me more seriously. Like, that's one thing I really struggled with. You know, like last year I went to an event which was like a pro audio event, and I got there a bit early and my friends were coming a bit later, and I was like, oh, I'm so on rock and roll, I'm so early, this is not cool. So I tried to like do the thing of networking, and yeah, it was weird, because like I'd approach a group of all white men and be like, "Oh, hi, how are you doing? I'm Katie." And they'd be like, "What do you do?" "I'm a mastering engineer." And they basically turn their back on me, and I'd go and try and like talk to another group, and they'd do the same. And you know, it's really hard because
Are we talking like
you get
are we talking just like 2019, 2020 still?
yeah, like last year, 2019. So like being taken to it's so weird. Like, why is it even a thing? If someone comes up to me and goes, "Oh, I'm a mix engineer," I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like, what are you working on? Tell me about that. But yeah, it's hard. So having Steinberg, um, you know, put my face on something that a lot of people use and know about was amazing because it kind of I still have a little bit of that barrier where people don't believe that I do what I say I do. But yeah, it definitely, like, their support's been amazing, and it's really, really helped me sort of, take my career a little bit further. So I'm
Well,
really grateful for them.
one of the things I particularly love about you and what you do, apart from the fact it's great to see a woman killing it and doing it really well, is the mentoring you do for other women and engineers, and you mentor other, I'm assuming, or I'm assuming, younger female mastering engineers who are trying to get a leg up.
No,
No?
absolutely not. I would love to. I would really love to. So,
Because I've seen you online doing some,
yeah,
you've spoken to different groups and there's lots of women's groups. So tell me about that stuff.
yeah. So, I've so it all kind of started when Brendan Harding, who used to work for Red Bull Studios, but he's now the manager at Strong Room Studios in London. He was like, "Yeah, I want to do this event. It's monthly. It'll be at Red Bull. It'll be just for women because I want to, help do his bit to help. He's got 2 daughters, and he, doesn't want them to feel like they can't do whatever it is they want to do. And by doing this event, he was sort of helping in an area that he knew. And honestly, that was life changing. And I tell him so often, it really was, because it gave me a network of, other women and gender minorities who are doing music. But the problem is, we did events monthly for about 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of those people who came to the events are now working in jobs, which is really, really cool.
Awesome.
But not many people are interested in mastering. And so, I've done those events, and I still do events for women and gender minorities, and I do events for, mixed groups as well. But I think because people don't really know that mastering is an option as a career, a lot of people are going into music being like, "Oh, I want to mix, or I want to record,
Or
and
produce.
so, or produce, or just basically anything other than mastering." So I have mentored women, but not specifically for mastering. And I'd love to find someone and help them.
Well, if it's going to make you feel any better, as someone that does a lot of mentoring myself, I would say that my experience is very similar. Not many mastering engineers per se. Some people say they have an interest in it. I think for the most part, they just say that because they think that that's what they need to say, or that's what they think I want to hear. And personally, I don't really care either way what they want to do. I'm just interested in what they're interested in and how I can help them to get to where they want to go. But I still think even to this day, mastering is one of those parts of our industry that doesn't have the same prestige and profile. And so, kids growing up, or certainly when I was growing up, I mean, when I listened to all these albums, and back in the old days when it was just lots of credits and I used to devour them, and it was always seeing similar engineers. So Bob Clearmountain was the guy who was my hero. growing up, because most of the records I was into, he pretty much mixed everything that was worth anything back in the day. And mastering was something you'd rarely ever see on a credit. Very, very rare. So now, as more albums have come out, you see mastering more credited, but it still doesn't have the same thing. And I find that when I go and talk to audio schools, if I do a talk on mastering, most of the time, the kids are there. They're attentive and they give me their attention, and I've got them, but they still will say, it's not really what we want to do. It's something that we have as an interest, something that we know we need to learn and be conversant in. But in terms of actual, as for career, come out of audio school, or as a young person wanting to make a career choice, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know what it's going to take for it to turn around. But I think the fact that maybe it's not as competitive, I don't know. There's plenty of work to go around. I think there's plenty of room for everyone to come into the ecosystem. I would love to see a world where kids say, I want to be a mastering engineer. But until the day comes where there'll be mastering engineer Grammys, or there'll be things where mastering engineers become rock stars in their own right, I think that'll still remain as it is now. You might change.
We are rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. I think you might be the one. Who knows?
No, I think you're right. It is hard because, if someone had spoken to me about this when I was in uni, all right, so I did a performance degree, so it wasn't really, it wasn't super tech focused, but, we did do studio stuff, and we had lectures from mix engineers and from producers and composers and stuff. And if someone had come and spoke about mastering, I probably would have been like, so what? Just because I think because people don't realize it is creative, and I think they think it's just this thing that happens at the end, whereas actually, I have a really good relationship with my clients, and I do get involved with sort of how the mix ends up sometimes, and I'll even work with people because I've got a background in arranging. If they're a new producer and the arrangement's not there, I'll be like, you might want to think about these things. Obviously, everything is taste, but when you build a relationship with someone and that trust is there, you can start sort of being more and more creative with them, and it helps everyone. I mean, going back to how me and James have worked over the past years, we still work together, but to go from where both of us didn't have a clue to where we are now, our careers have progressed at the same rate. We've learned together. It's really nice because now I can really, really trust him to give me brutally honest feedback.
Yeah, you need that.
He can trust me to do the same.
Yeah.
So
are there
I
any
think
other...
people don't really realize how collaborative it is.
Oh, it is, absolutely. I've there's a meme of me out there which is whether you like it or not, or whether you realize it or not, I'm a surrogate member of your band. And I think we need to be maniacal, even though it's about the artist and their song and their art and their name on the cover. I think we need to be invested in what they're doing. And I think that's what's going to differentiate us from anyone else, why they'd want to work with you, because we're living in a time now, amazing, where we have so much choice and so many options and so much bang for the buck. And, everyone now's got pretty much the similar, it's a fairly equal playing field in terms of gear and plugins and this and that and the other. And, I think anyone that's going to be prepared to do a little extra for a client, it'll be invested, and people are going to know that because you're asking questions of them, you're taking the time to listen to the material and offer them some constructive input, under the guise of I want to bring this to the table in the interest of making this record better for both of us, because their success is yours. And I think people are very open to that sort of thing. So yeah, it is a collaborative thing, and it is a team thing. And I can't stress it highly enough that you know, this is a relationship economy right now more than ever. So if we can foster those with people and put in and be authentic in the way we go about it, that's what's going to take us further than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. But it's hard to get that across when people are like, oh, come to my college and deliver a technical lecture. I always prefer the, you know, when people are like, oh, will you come and talk about your job and the wider like
Scope.
industry?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's much more interesting, because you can really like have in-depth conversations about like, you know, how everything sort of works together and different people's journeys and stuff. And
Well,
I think that's a lot more inspiring to listen to than, you know, for someone young at least, than like the super technical stuff. I mean,
yeah.
the technical stuff is valid, and you know, you kind of need to know that to a certain extent. But you know, I feel like there's going to be a bit of a skills gap eventually with mastering, because, well, in the UK, there's mastering houses and that's fine, but they really rarely take on new interns and assistant mastering engineers, and it's kind of, you know, I'm seeing a lot of people retiring basically, but I'm not seeing people taking their places, and that's hard, because like you said before, there is room for everyone. There is enough work there. It's just making people realize that this is a cool job. We get to do cool shit. We get to work on music that we love every single day. Why would you not want to do
No,
this?
I couldn't agree more. And I feel that older cats like myself, we have a duty of care and responsibility and obligation to pass knowledge and pass the torch, and help you younger guys out, and gals for that matter. You know, we're duty bound. And, you know, Katie, this podcast really is one way of doing that. And, you know, I'm so passionate about mentoring younger engineers, because when I was younger, I had guys who didn't know me at all. They owed me nothing and gave me more than the time of day. And so, you know, I just made a promise to myself that one day, if I ever got to a high level, or a level like these guys, I would make damn sure that if anyone approached me, I would help them out. And that doesn't mean I help every single person that comes my way. I think you can only help the ones that want to help themselves. And in my case, you know, I remember when I went overseas with no money, didn't know anyone. Yeah, I was just so maniacal about what I wanted to do. I didn't care. And Americans, I think, have a soft spot for people like that, who just will run through brick walls to get things done. So, and I've got to tell you honestly, I find it hard sometimes. You know, you offer yourself out to people, and but it really surprises me. How there is this surprising amount of apathy I still find, and almost this expectation that I'm supposed to chase people down. And I said, no, fuck you. I'm not going to chase you. You know, I will help you, but you got to meet me halfway. And I find it hard sometimes when you know, you offer to help, and sometimes people are just showing up, or, you know, or getting back to you within a certain time frame, or returning an email, or it's still, I find it still quite extraordinary. Thankfully, there's enough out there. I mean, I don't want to, and I don't have time to do every single person. I get so many weekly emails and phone calls. Will you intern me? Will you do this? You do that? And then you ask them to do something simple, and 95 times out of 100, you don't hear back from them. They won't do anything. So that 5%, I'm happy to work with. That's plenty for me to deal with. Have you got any over in the UK, any other engineer mentors that you know from the other houses, or it's closed shop? They just pretty much we're doing our own thing, and no, fuck you, without the fuck you, you know.
No, like I've never really had a mentor. I feel like there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'm not gonna lie, one of them is like, I'm that really annoying person that wants to do everything themselves and feels like I kind of, you know, I want to give stuff a go, and if it doesn't work and I fail and it's my own fucking fault, and if it does work, then okay, how can I do that better? And I think that's part of it. And then, you know, engineers and mastering houses in the UK have been so nice to me, but when you're both working, it's really hard to kind of keep like a relationship and a sort of mentor thing going, because, you know, I'm mentoring a lot of people, and yeah, it's just, it hasn't happened. And there was times when I was really like, oh, I do feel like I should have a mentor. Why don't I have a mentor? How can I find a mentor? And yeah, it's not happened, but I, you know, I keep in touch with some amazing engineers. And, you know, Matt Colton especially, he used to work for Alchemy Mastering, he now works for Metropolis. Like, he is such a huge inspiration, but he was the first person to ever go, hey, like, he reached out to me, he was like, hey, do you want to come to my studio and we can have a chat? And I was like, oh my God, you mastered leftism by left field. Are you for real? And, you know, he was so nice. And yeah, he's just a really inspirational guy. Like, yeah, amazing. And then Mandy Parnell as well. Like, I see her at events and she's just so, like, just such an amazing person. And,
hey, have you got a hookup for her? Because
like,
I'd love to have her on the podcast.
she is incredible. Like, she is a huge inspiration for me. But, like, you know, in terms of having a regular mentor, it's never really happened. But I feel like by watching other people's careers, and, you know, the mastering community is really small, and, like, I feel pretty confident that if I wanted to get some advice of someone, I could just phone them up and they'd be really happy to help.
Yeah,
And it's
and
kind of like that, like, everyone helps each other. So
I think everyone in that respect can be. I don't think a mentor needs to necessarily be. It's like a monogamous relationship where it's one person. I think even myself, I still to this day have people that I consider my mentors, and people like you know, Dave Collins, for example. I still consider you know, he's a friend, he's a colleague. We're peers now, but I still consider him a mentor. He's a and I think that a mentor is a person that you just don't ring when you want advice on something. Sometimes it's just ring them up and sharing something good that you did. You know, just I think just maintaining a level of communication. I don't think it needs to be formalized. It doesn't need to have any particular you know, structure in any way. It's just an understanding, I guess, and a willingness to maintain some level of communication. And yeah, you're right. It's a beautiful time to be alive in terms of having access to people. When I started out, it was writing a letter to a studio and waiting 5-6 days at best to get to that destination, and then depending on whether they opened it and how soon they responded and how soon they got it back to you, it was a 2 to 3 week process to get some kind of, hey, how's it going? Thanks for seeing your letter, da da da. You know, and of course you had the phone, but then, you know, back in 1978, 79, you know, a 3-minute phone call to America, you know, I had to give up half a spleen, you know, and a third of my bowel, you know, to do it. It's just nuts. Whereas in this day and age, we got social media. Most of the time we know the people that are behind the social media, especially in our world anyway, is that person. There's not 5, 6, 7 gatekeepers before you get to them. And so, yeah, I think you probably don't realize you have mentors without even realizing it.
yeah, I think like, even just talking about what a mentor is quite interesting, because, you know, I always put myself forward if, like, universities or colleges want an engineer for, like, you know, a mentoring program, and then it's quite it is a structured thing. And then sometimes people email me asking me to mentor them, and then it turns out that they basically want, like, a guided route into, you know, being an engineer. And that's tricky when it's someone who's basically like, teach me everything you know, and you're like, I'm not a teacher, I don't know where to start. Like, I'm not the only person who could, you know, ask me something that I know about, like, you know, setting up a studio. Like the other stuff, probably ask for someone that knows about that. But it's hard when people kind of want you to provide everything and be like that guide, like that one person. That's really hard. And I feel like that's why I feel like I've not had a mentor, because I've not had that person. But you're actually so right. Like, I've had lots of people collectively giving me amazing advice and being really, really supportive. So yeah, I've probably had lots of mentors.
Yeah, and
But I
no
feel
doubt you
like
do.
even people who are beginning their journey can help you. Like, I think it's a two-way, like it works both ways kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I mentored someone who was she was doing a gap year from uni, and she had to find like different work in sort of related fields. And she's a multi-instrumentalist, she's a producer, she's a writer, like she does loads of different stuff. And she taught me so much. You know, I was supposed to be mentoring her through her uni's program, but she taught me so much about like being flexible and sort of adjusting to like different circumstances and thinking outside of the box of how I approach different situations. So, you know, it kind of, I feel like I get stuff when I mentor people, and hopefully
Absolutely.
they
Mm-hmm.
get stuff as well. So
Well,
yeah.
the Russians have a saying of when I teach, I learn. And I find that so true in what you're saying, that when you are mentoring, teaching, quite often you get feedback from others. And I know even in this place over the years of the young guys that have come through here, I've learned a lot from these young guys about workflow and about technology. And look, I'm the world's greatest technophobe. I'm the least technical guy on the planet. It was something that contributed a lot to my my imposter syndrome, which I had for 20 plus years of my career. Only the last 2 years, I think I was able to shake it off. But I, you know, the younger kids to me provide a lot of great energy and a different new way of looking at doing things. And, you know, and it also, what mentoring's done for me is also made me look at myself in terms of how to reinvent myself. I'm just about 57, and I love doing this job and I want to continue doing it, but just, you know, realizing that I've got another way of being able to contribute and bring something to the table and make space for the young kids to come through and let them become prime time and whatnot. So being around these younger cats is also been a great learning curve for me. And I'm also very grateful for the fact that I get those opportunities to hang out with kids and listen to their view of the world and about what they like in music and what they expect. And so, because I don't have all the answers, I never will. So I think it's important that we keep open to things, and by mentoring, I'm learning along the way, and that's one of the big things I love about it. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
So,
So go on. Sorry, say it.
no, I was just agreeing with you.
There you go.
Just agreeing.
And you know, you got me. You got me as well, Katie. If you ever,
Yay!
you know,
Thanks.
if it
Well,
ever,
actually, the first time we spoke, like, well, the first time we spoke, we were meant to be recording this podcast, but actually, you gave me such like good advice about, you know, I do have imposter syndrome a bit, and I really struggle with the idea of running a business. I never wanted to be a business person, and I hate thinking of it like this, and I hate thinking with the people I work with as clients. But you gave me some really good advice about that. And, you know, I think it's just having conversations with people, isn't it? Like, that's really important. And yeah, like you can't sit in your studio and be totally isolated and expect to progress with anything.
Yeah,
So
true.
yeah, I think it's really important to have like conversations with people and just talk about the stuff that no one really talks about, because that's the stuff that everyone's struggling with because no one talks about it. But if everyone spoke about the fact that, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm technically running a business, but I hate this. I hate, because for me, like when I was a kid, like all of the villains in Disney films were businessmen, or like Matilda's dad.
Yeah.
God, and it wasn't like a positive thing, but then you are a business person, but it doesn't necessarily have to be horrible. You don't have to be a dick. You can really respect like the people that you work with, and just coming to like those sort of realizations is really productive, because then you can move on from that and be like, okay, this is what it is, next please, like next challenge. But yeah, no one talks about that. Like no one told us how to fill in a tax return in school or uni or anything, and no one even said that we would have to register as a freelancer or anything. And all of these little things along the way, and you're like, but I just want to make music. But yeah, it's the stuff that no one talks about. It's hard.
I
but
think also
useful.
people aren't generally honest about it either. They don't talk about it, but even when it comes to the mindset stuff, people, again, this whole imposter syndrome thing. Look, I was surprised when I wrote a blog about it 2 years ago, and I had other engineers, privately hit me up, and people that I was absolutely shocked to hear that they, still to this day, or to that day back then, were experiencing that. And I think it's important that, again, I put the onus on us older guys who feel a certain way to have these conversations and be honest about these kind of things, because most people are feeling it. Look, most younger people are getting into it, probably would have more imposter syndrome than anyone, because they're new, they don't know where to start, and they're probably thinking, well, what the fuck am I doing here? Why, I shouldn't be here. And they shoot themselves in the foot before. And that's been my experience dealing with younger mentees and people that do approach me. And I think when you're honest enough to tell them, hey, listen, you may see me in a certain way or perceive me to be a certain person, but I'm no different to you. I have the same fears and anxieties and disappointments, and I'm just as human as you. And I think when you can be honest enough with people, to people that see you a certain way, I think you're doing them a great service, to help them alleviate some of the anxieties and some of the fears they have, to understand that those feelings are normal, but they shouldn't be crippled by them, and they shouldn't allow them to dictate as to where they go. And I'll share with you, one great story. Tom Coyne, rest in peace, my man, who I remember telling him about the fact that, I'm not technical, Tom, and I feel like a fraud, and I just spilt my guts to him. And he just looked at me in the eye and said, Tony, you know what? You don't have to be. I'm not that technical. He said, I'm not that technical at all. He said, all you got to do is close your eyes and twiddle the knobs till it sounds great, because you're dealing with emotion and feeling, and that's what it's about. So if you can feel the music and you can get the sense of what the artist is trying to convey, and help them realize that, and use your tools as a means, doesn't matter. Again, a great artist doesn't have to know what's in the paint, or what sort of pigments in there, or how they create the paint, or how the brushes are made, or how the bristles, and they just know that's the paint, that's the brush, here's the canvas. When I do this, that happens. When I do that, that happens, to create the final thing. It's no different. But you see, Tom Coyne, to me, he was like, fuck. And I'm just Mr. fucking nobody from, Australia. And to have a guy like that sit down and tell me that, as brutally honest as that gave me so much confidence. I still had it, but it helped me move forward in terms of, just letting me keep going and keep going and keep going, But now I'm at an age where I really don't give a fuck about what people think. So I'm happy to be straight up and drop my pants out, and be emotionally open and bare. If it's going to help other people, then it's worth it. I'm happy to do it. Simple.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think as you go on, you'll be doing more of it yourself. I think as you build your confidence and build momentum in the work that you do, and more and more people do start approaching you, that's a sure sign that you're doing something right and that people are seeing you in a certain light. And I think it's such a privilege when people come up and they do ask for help in certain areas. And because let's face it, Katie, we're living in a world now where options are endless. So we have so many options and accessibility to people. And, if you are singled out, well, it's a great privilege, I think, when people approach you. So, already, you're a young woman, and already, in a relatively short period of time, I mean, you're making your mark, and you're going out and you're mentoring and you're doing talks, and people are approaching you. Congratulations. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks. It's really cool because, just I've always wanted to work, do something musical, and I always like helping people and having a sort of that sort of community vibe. Like I really enjoy that. And I think because I grew up in Manchester, and there was a really sort of close knit DIY music scene there.
Yeah.
And then I started going around the country for engineering jobs and realized that other places weren't quite that lucky. And I think so before Brendan, who I mentioned before, asked me to host these events for Red Bull, I didn't really know any, not in person. I didn't know many women doing this, but I also didn't have, much of a community. I think that's really important, and just people working together, and also because it feels really lonely sometimes when you're working, and if you don't have that sort of a scene around you, then you can feel really isolated. Like when I was in Manchester, I was so close to quitting just because I didn't really know anyone, and all of the engineers that I was around at that time were so competitive. They weren't working together, they weren't lifting each other up, they weren't helping each other, and it wasn't nice. It was kind of, I don't know if you've seen Little Britain, but it was very I'm the only engineer in the village kind of thing. And it was really off-putting. And so my vibe is just trying to be hey, you want to do this, come on, let's have a conversation. And I just hope that other people, I see other people doing the same thing, and I think that's amazing.
And
the people that don't do that don't seem to last very long as well. So I don't think that, maybe it's a lack of passion, or I don't know.
Well, I think a big part of being successful is operating not from a place of ego, rather than being egocentric, where it's all good to work for yourself and take care of your own business and whatnot. But the most successful people I've ever met in my life have always been, work from a ethnocentric place. So it's something beyond them. So it's about, as you mentioned before, it's about community, and it's about a scene, and it's about putting out, information and knowledge, and inviting people, and creating opportunity, creating these spaces for people to get together and contribute and make people feel inclusive, and whatnot. And it's the more experienced people that really have to do that. We can't, look, sure, someone who's young and inexperienced can go out there and do their own thing. I'd encourage them to do that. But I feel us older cats, again, that we have a responsibility, and as I said, I think a sense of duty to do that, to create the space, to make people feel welcome, to lead that way. and to bring them into the fold, help them out, guide them, teach them, so that then they can go off and do it for other people, and then so on and rinse and repeat. And so I think that's where true success is. When you're invested in other people and you work towards creating them become successful, then you become successful on the back of that. It's just an automatic byproduct of the process. You don't need to worry about you get taken care of, and that's been my experience. So when I find that I can keep that energy and that vibe going on, the universe takes care of me.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think at the end of the day, everyone has the same goals, which is to work making music. And so if we can't come together and like celebrate that, then that's really sad, because I think music's supposed to be shared as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Not a solitary thing, like, or, well, I mean, it can be a solitary thing, but, you also like pubs and clubs and gigs and that sort of thing. That's, yeah, like it is a very sociable thing. And if you say, oh no, I'm not going to talk to you because I am trying to do the same thing as you, you're probably not going to get very far.
Yeah, no.
It's really silly.
Yeah. Well, look, and even in this era right now, I don't know what's happening in the UK, but here in Australia, well, it's certainly Victoria, my state, they just announced progressive restrictions on. So now entertainment venues are closed down. For the next little while, it's going to be a bit rough. But but look, we're being creative beings. We now have more online gigs and live streaming and other models. It still doesn't have to be, as you said, doesn't have to be a solitary thing. There's still ways of getting online, getting involved, doing things, making yourself known and heard, and bringing some value to the rest of people. Yeah,
for sure. It's been really nice to see, actually. Obviously it's terrifying for people in a lot of different industries, but it's nice to see that people are still getting together even though they're not allowed to physically be together.
Cool. Well, I think adversity brings out the best of people. We see the worst and the best of people when we're under stress, and as scary as the situation is, and there's a lot of fear around and whatnot, I'm still seeing not just glimmers of hope, a lot of hope that this is going to bring people more together. It's going to make people prioritize what's important to them. And when this thing eventually passes, which it will, like anything else in life, it's going to create better relationships, better connections, better music, better everything. It's just, I think of this time right now as a kind of reset phase and a recalibration and cleaning out. It's like when you clear the clutter in your closet and everything's really good after you sort of decide, make the decision and get rid of shit and whatnot. So yeah. Can I just say, just on a complete tangent, your hair game is very strong, my dear. Your hair game is.
Thank you.
What's the secret? Come on, tell us. How do you get the locks looking so awesome?
So I get my hair cut once or twice a year, and my hairdresser is called Davey, and he works at Mooch Hairdressing in Brighton, and he is wonderful. And he goes and twice a year turns my hair from like a scraggly ball of unbrushed spaghetti into something that's passable for a decent haircut. But he's like amazing. Like, I look like two different people before and after I've gone to see him. So yeah, it's all him. It's not me.
it's a master of hair. Yeah.
Yeah, he is a master of hair. I mean, like, it's amazing, actually. Like, so he's a freelancer, and like seeing the passion that he puts into like doing my hair, and like he literally he's a hair artist. Like, he gets like this palette and paints my hair bit by bit, and I'm asking him loads of questions like, how do you know which bit to do? And he's like, I just look at it and I feel it, and I see what, I see how I feel and what feels right. I do, and I'm like, this is what I do in my job, but you're doing it to my hair. So yeah, shout out to all of the hairdressers, because that can't be an easy job. I don't know.
No.
But yeah.
I was saying to my wife Connie before doing this podcast, I said, I'm going to make sure at some point because my podcast is not usually tutorial based or technical based or how do you make it loud and all this kind of shit. There's plenty of that out there, and that's well catered for. I'm just trying to sort of get into people's minds and how they got into their industry.
Can you hear how windy it is? Oh, it's just stopped now. It's really windy in Brighton. Like, it's really sunny.
Yeah.
I genuinely just thought a tree was going to blow over. Sorry, carry on.
No. I lost my trail of thought. Oh yeah. I was just telling her that, when I get to speak with you, I said, I'm going to make sure we get some kind of girly talk in there. We need to girly it up just a little bit, because we have to.
We've not talked about cats yet.
All right, let's have a little talk about cats before we close out. So tell me about your cats. I'm a dog.
I fucking love cats. I don't have any cats though.
That's not good.
But I want like a few cats.
Why not? You're not allowed to have one where you're staying or where you live?
No, no one in this building is allowed any pets, which is sad. But I lived with the best housemate I've ever had when I lived in London, and she had 2 cats. And they were so cute. And one of them was like, oh, you're my BFF now. I'm going to follow you everywhere. And when I was like, I'd come home from the studio in the evening and doing my admin, he'd be there like helping me type emails, and he'd help me install new plugins. And yeah, so cats are where it's at, and dogs too.
I'm a dog person. I've only recently became a lover of felines with recent cat where I'm living at the moment. There was a cat called Chooch. He lived to be about 23 or something, and he was a fucking little asshole of a cat. But we did click towards the end of his last years of his life, and from being a cantankerous little asshole, he ended up being quite a nice, placid boy. And I'd entertain a sort of a cat. I'd get a dog first, but if you any particular cat if you could have a cat, if the building said tomorrow, okay, everyone, you can have 1 or 2 cats, what would you get?
I'd go and adopt like the 4 oldest cats in the adoption centre, and yeah.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
Yeah, I'd get all the old ones and basically annoy them until they died. I just really like them. But what I like about cats is that they are scared. They can sense the love, and they hate that. So like my friends who hate cats will always get cats sat on their knee.
Really?
But if you love cats, they will stay the fuck away from you. So yeah, right? I'd get some old ones and like spoil them and hug them. Yeah, all my friends who are allergic to cats, like the cats fucking love them, even though they're like, please stay away from me.
Wow. See, I'd never seen that before. I never even thought of that. See, dogs are the opposite. Dogs, if you're a dog person, they're up to you. But if you're not down, you'll know anyway. They'll let you know. They know. They don't fuck about.
I like dogs too, but I think having a dog is probably similar to having a small child, and I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah, they can be, although some people treat them like they're children. I mean, they're dogs. Dogs are dogs. They're I think cats are a lot more independent. I mean, if you're going to
that.
I mean, if you're going to start off with a pet, I think, especially if you're younger, cat's an easier proposition because at least they're certainly not as they don't need as much maintenance as a dog does. With walking and stuff like that, and dare I say, grooming, depending on the breed. But certainly they're a lot more independent, and they'll just come up to you and they want something. When they want something, they're there. Other than that, it's like, fuck you, over you.
Yeah, I quite like that. Just go away until you want to hug me. Then you can come back.
If you're with a dog and the apocalypse comes in, Katie Tavini, that dog will lay down and die with you, but a cat will fucking eat you from the inside out. It will not give a fuck. You're done.
I think that's part of the appeal. I quite like that. I like what bastards they are. Okay, so we've covered cats, we've covered hair.
Yeah, covered hair. All right.
Wine.
All right,
Australia has a lot of wine.
We have a lot of wine. I'm not a drinker myself. But yeah, we do have a lot of wine and a lot of good growing regions. And I think Barossa Valley in South Australia is renowned. Tasmania, apparently good Pinots down there because of the cool climate. Shiraz, we do good shit. We do all kinds of good shit in Australia, you know?
Yeah, my dad's really into wine and he's always like, oh, this is an Australian something. I mean, I don't really know the difference. It's just wine. But yeah, I've heard my dad talk about Australia where wine is concerned. He really rates it.
No, we punch above our weight, and New Zealand too, for that matter. New Zealand, they kick ass too when it comes to wine. But I'm not a drinker. When I was growing up, I remember how much the smell of stale beer used to put me off, and just the arsehole-ish behavior that people that drank, obviously too much wine became obnoxious, and I wasn't down with that. And I remember seeing, the pissheads over here who are all aggro, and the stoners over here that were cool as fuck. So I said, I'm going to join you guys. And so,
that's why.
Yeah, but I went overboard. I mean, I went absolutely fucking silly, through midlife, and thankfully I don't go as crazy anymore. I mean, I like to party with the best of them, Katie, Charles, but nothing, nothing like anything like I used to. It's don't do too many drugs, kids. No, I don't recommend. And don't do too much alcohol either. That's not good for you. But so if you're gonna have a wine, Katie, what would you be drinking? What are you gonna be drinking tonight?
Probably a cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's got to be a cup of tea with oat milk and 1 sugar.
Yeah, that's the thing. But that's not a wine.
That's where it's at.
But that's not a wine. If you were going to have a wine, what
it's
would
not wine.
If
I was having wine, I'd have a red wine, but I don't really know the difference.
Don't you find hilarious those people that really those chin strokers that sort of get into, oh, it's very oaky and very this and a hint of that and a hint of pineapple, and it reminds me of very floss on a summer's day.
I mean, it tastes like wine to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that matters. I think it's like with anything. When people get so.
But you know what though? Like, my mum is a expert tea drinker. Like, runs in the family, but she can tell the difference between brands of tea. Like, for sure, just like a proper wine drinker could, and that always impresses me because I can't. But yeah.
I saw a show once from your neck of the universe that showed how they made a certain, I forget what the manufacturer was, but because they would use different blends of different teas, they had this guy that would make every batch would be exactly the same, and each batch could sometimes be made from 20 different, 25 different, 30 different teas around the world, and he would just absolutely meticulous in making the exact right blend of everything to create the same taste each and every time. Apparently his taste buds were insured and all this kind of stuff. So there's some pretty crazy motherfuckers.
He's a tea master.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah, mastering tea. We've been mastering hair, mastering tea. Yeah.
You need to get him on the podcast.
Maybe not. Not yet. Not yet, Katie. When
I'd watch it.
Well, listen, if I get to episode, 40,365,829, then perhaps we may be running out of options then, and we're ready to go down that path. But until then, and maybe by then I'll get Chris Athens on the podcast. Who knows?
Well, I hope you do, because I want to hear that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it too. He's a badass motherfucker, and I haven't seen much of his. I don't see much of his stuff out there, so I haven't been singled out for particular treatment. But I'll keep on his case, Katie. I promise you, and maybe that will be the one I could retire on. Maybe that's like I've hit fucking the top of the mountain, no hands, Ma, look at me. But I'll keep on this hammer. Katie, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
It's been really fun. Thanks for having me, Tony.
No, not a problem at all. And I sincerely wish you continued success in what you're doing. I think
Thank you so much.
What you've achieved is amazing, and I encourage you to keep going on. And thank you for your time and for sharing your thoughts. And just love it to have this conversation with you. It was really, really lovely.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right, good as gold. Take care of yourself, and we'll speak to you soon. Okay. And as I said, if you ever need, if you ever want anything at all, just when you're going through your list, and there's one more on the bottom there that you can count on.
Thank you. I really appreciate that so much. Really do.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's my pleasure. I have a lot of joy doing that. All right. I'm out of here. Before I go, I must say a quick thank you to my sponsors, Amiga Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in Collingwood, who sponsored me, George Soteropoulos out from UFC fighter, great credentialed trainer and coach, and he does amazing things out there. We're a great club. We're at 6 Down Street, Collingwood. So if you want to come for a bit of fitness, whether you want to do MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, grappling, kickboxing, anything like that, come on out and check it out. Amiga MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Collingwood. And shout out to George Soteropoulos, who he's a great. If you ever come out to Australia, you should come and do some Jiu-Jitsu. Katie?
I would actually love that so much.
Yeah. Oh, you dig it. You dig it. Actually, there's a lot of females at the club, and no, it's a good vibe. It's a good place.
It looks really fun. I've got loads of friends who do it, actually. So yeah.
It's good really good to do something, because the work we do is very sedentary, right? So it's good to do something physical to clear your body, clear your mind, So anyway, so thanks again to George and Amiga. All right, well, I'm out of here. And as I always say, please be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you fuckers. We'll see you next time.
Bye.